What if the most chilling moment in Invasion of the Body Snatchers isn't the scream everyone remembers, but the version you were never meant to see? Invasion of the Body Snatchers wasn't just a science fiction remake. It was a paranoid autopsy of modern society, filmed in a city already fraying at the edges. This is the story behind 20 weird facts about Invasion of the Body Snatchers and the ending that almost changed everything. Stay to the end and pay attention. Fact 1. The remake nobody wanted became the one nobody could ignore. Hollywood doesn't trust remakes. Not then, not now. When Invasion of the Body Snatchers enters development, executives see risk, not relevance. The 1956 original is respected, quiet, clinical, complete. Redoing it feels unnecessary. But Philip Kaufman doesn't pitch nostalgia, he pitches dread. Not flying saucers, but sleep. Not monsters, but neighbors. Production begins under low expectations. Modest budget, minimal oversight. What audiences didn't know is that this skepticism gives the filmmakers freedom. That changes when early dailies arrive. The film feels colder, meaner. This isn't comforting science fiction. It's an accusation. Fact 2. San Francisco isn't a setting, it's a warning. This film doesn't use San Francisco for beauty. It uses it for erosion. Wide shots flatten the city. Interiors feel temporary. Offices blur together. Streets feel empty even when crowded. What audiences didn't know is that Kaufman avoids landmarks on purpose. No postcards, no romance. This isn't a city of icons. It's a city of late buses, fluorescent corridors, and people who don't look up. Location scouts search for places that feel replaceable, not iconic, interchangeable. That choice reinforces the film's core terror, loss of individuality. The invasion doesn't disrupt society, it blends into it. Fact 3. The pod effects were built to feel wrong, not real. The pods aren't designed to impress, they're designed to unsettle. Practical effects teams avoid smooth surfaces. They add uneven textures, subtle pulses, imperfect symmetry. What audiences didn't know is that the effects crew studies organic decay, not futuristic design. The pods look grown, not built. Lighting stays low. Movement stays minimal. Because the horror isn't spectacle. It's suggestion. The less you see, the more your mind fills in. Crew members reportedly feel uneasy handling them. Not because they look dangerous. Because they look familiar. Like they belong. Fact 4. Donald Sutherland's performance is built on restraint. Donald Sutherland doesn't play panic. He plays delay. What audiences didn't know is that Kaufman repeatedly asks him to hold back. No big reactions, no early fear. Just mild concern, professional patience. That restraint becomes the film's engine. Because this story isn't about discovering danger. It's about refusing to believe it. Sutherland's character explains everything away. Stress, coincidence, fatigue. The performance mirrors real human behavior during slow disasters. Not screaming, rationalizing. By the time fear surfaces, it's already too late. That's not acting for sympathy. It's acting for recognition. Fact 5. Leonard Nimoy is cast against trust. Leonard Nimoy brings authority, calm, reason. And that's exactly why he's dangerous. What audiences didn't know is that his casting is deliberate misdirection. Viewers associate Nimoy with logic and control. So when he dismisses concerns, it feels reassuring. Until it doesn't. His character represents institutional comfort, the belief that everything can be explained, categorized, normalized. Not fear, but certainty. The performance never turns openly sinister. It doesn't need to, because the most effective threat in the film isn't hostility, it's reassurance. Danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it calmly says there's nothing to worry about. Fact 6. The sound design is engineered to erode calm. There is no musical safety net. The score doesn't guide emotions, it destabilizes them. What audiences didn't know is that composer Denny Zeitlin uses electronic textures to avoid recognizable melodies. No hummable themes, no heroic cues. Just pulses, drones, unease. Every sound feels slightly off. Even silence carries weight. Background noise creeps forward. Ordinary sounds, footsteps, whispers, alarms feel amplified. The effect is subconscious. Viewers don't realize they're being unsettled. They just feel it, not jump scares. But erosion, the film doesn't scare you all at once. It wears you down. Fact 7. The famous cameo isn't nostalgia, it's a threat. The original 1956 star appears briefly, not as comfort but as warning. What audiences didn't know is that this cameo is designed as a passing of doom, not legacy. He doesn't smile. He doesn't explain. He runs, and he's ignored. That moment tells the audience everything. The warning has been issued before. It didn't work then. It won't work now. History isn't repeating. It's continuing. Fact 8. Studio notes begin to multiply as the tone darkens. Early cuts alarm executives. Too bleak, too cold, too unresolved. What audiences didn't know is that pressure mounts quietly. Not demands, but questions. Can the ending be softened? Can hope be clearer? Can the audience leave reassured? Kaufman resists, because reassurance is the enemy of the story. The more notes arrive, the more the director digs in. This isn't a thriller about survival. It's a horror story about inevitability. Fact 9. The film refuses a traditional hero's arc. There is no transformation into strength, no mastery of fear. What audiences didn't know is that this structural choice is intentional rebellion. The film denies catharsis. Characters don't grow, they vanish. Emotion is not rewarded. Awareness is not enough. The invasion doesn't escalate dramatically. It just continues. That's what makes it unbearable. The absence of triumph isn't failure. It's the point. Fact 10. The movie's midpoint quietly tells you the ending. This is where I'll pause and say go ahead and like and subscribe because this detail explains why the ending hits so hard. What audiences didn't know is that the film reveals its final truth halfway through, not in dialogue. In behavior, people stop reacting. Emotion drains from scenes. Background characters move in sync. The world adapts. The horror isn't the transformation. It's acceptance. Once you see that, the ending stops being a twist. It becomes confirmation. Fact 11. Multiple endings are discussed, not all filmed. As release approaches, alternatives circulate. Some hopeful, some ambiguous. What audiences didn't know is that Kaufman rejects them almost immediately. Because ambiguity invites comfort, and comfort breaks the spell. The director wants finality. Not relief, but realization. This is not a story about escape. It's a story about loss. Changing the ending would mean lying to the audience. Fact 12. The studio's biggest fear isn't fear itself. Executives worry about audience reaction. Not shock, but despair. What audiences didn't know is that test screenings spark silence. Not applause. Not outrage. Just quiet. That silence is interpreted as danger. But Kaufman sees success. Because the film isn't meant to entertain. It's meant to linger. And silence means it worked. Fact 13. The ending is designed as a betrayal. The final moments don't escalate. They crystallize. What audiences didn't know is that the ending is structured to feel like recognition, not revelation. You don't learn something new. You realize something old. The truth was always there. The film simply waits until you can't deny it anymore. That's not a twist. It's a verdict. Fact 14. One alternate ending softens the final image. One proposed ending introduces distance. Space to breathe. A subtle implication that something or someone might still escape. What audiences didn't know is that Kaufman finds this version deeply dishonest, because distance implies hope, and hope contradicts the film's central thesis. In this story, the invasion doesn't miss corners. It doesn't overlook individuals. It closes gaps. A softened ending suggests the system failed somewhere. That resistance still exists beyond the frame. Kaufman refuses that idea. For him, the horror comes from completeness, from the sense that nothing has been spared. An ending that offers relief doesn't deepen the fear. It excuses it. Fact 15. Another ending removes the final reveal entirely. In another discussed version, the film ends earlier. Before certainty. Before confirmation. What audiences didn't know is that this version actually tests poorly, not because it confuses viewers, but because it's too gentle. Without the final reveal, audiences imagine alternatives. Maybe survival. Maybe resistance. Maybe misunderstanding. That uncertainty creates comfort, and comfort undermines the story's purpose. Kaufman understands that withholding the truth feels clever, but it weakens the impact. The film isn't asking viewers to speculate. It's asking them to confront loss. Ending early would allow escape through imagination. The director refuses that mercy. He wants the ending to be unavoidable. Fact 16. The chosen ending risks alienating everyone. The final scene doesn't explain itself. It doesn't comfort. It doesn't offer a path forward. It accuses. What audiences didn't know is that Kaufman fully understands the risk. He knows some viewers will recoil. Others will feel betrayed. But he accepts that cost. Because a safe ending would betray the film itself. This story isn't really about extraterrestrial invaders. It's about conformity. The surrender of identity, the ease with which individuality dissolves under pressure. A reassuring ending would soften that message. So Kaufman chooses confrontation instead. Not to shock, but to leave a mark that can't be ignored. Fact 17. The ending rewrites the meaning of every scene. Once you know how the film ends, it rewinds itself in your mind. Scenes you trusted feel altered. Casual conversations turn suspicious. Smiles feel rehearsed. Silences feel deliberate. What audiences didn't know is that the ending is designed to retroactively infect the entire movie. Like the pods themselves. Nothing before it remains neutral. Every moment becomes evidence. The invasion doesn't start at the climax. It's been unfolding quietly from the beginning. That's why repeat viewings feel colder, more precise, less forgiving. The ending doesn't conclude the story. It rewrites everything that came before it and refuses to let you forget it. Fact 18. The director never wanted a sequel explanation. No continuation, no aftermath, no explanation of what happens next. What audiences didn't know is that Kaufman actively resists expanding the story. Because explanation weakens horror. Answers create boundaries. They give fear an edge, and edges can be managed. This film thrives on uncertainty, on the sense that the world has shifted permanently, without rules or timelines. A sequel would offer structure, and structure invites control. For Kaufman, the unknown isn't the enemy. Resolution is. By refusing further clarification, the ending remains open, but not hopeful. It doesn't ask what happens next. It leaves you realizing what has already happened. Fact 19. Critics argue, decades later, about the ending's cruelty. Even decades later, the ending divides critics. Some call it cruel, others call it honest. What audiences didn't know is that this argument is the film's real legacy. Because the ending doesn't settle fear, it transfers it from the screen to the viewer. Those who reject it want distance. Those who defend it recognize its truth. The film doesn't allow emotional closure. It denies relief. And that denial is exactly what keeps the movie alive in cultural memory. Few endings provoke debate this long. Fewer still remain this unsettling. The disagreement isn't a flaw. It's evidence the film succeeded. The invasion didn't end in the story. It continued in the audience. Fact 20. The ending you see is the one the director fought for. The final image isn't loud. It isn't explosive. It doesn't rely on spectacle. It is stillness, recognition, loss. What audiences didn't know is that this ending survives only because Kaufman refuses compromise. Not a jump scare, not a rescue, not a final stand. Just a moment that strips away denial completely. The horror isn't sudden, it's absolute. By choosing this ending, the director ensures the film doesn't fade after the credits. It follows you. It lingers. It waits. This isn't an ending designed to please. It's one designed to remain long after the screen goes dark. This film didn't just remake a classic. It redefined what an ending could take from you. If you felt unsettled, that wasn't an accident. It was intention. If you want more stories where the truth survives the cut, subscribe, and remember, sometimes the real invasion happens after the credits roll.